Hello, I'm Dr. Brandt Gibson, and today I want to talk to you about stress fractures in general. So when we talk about fractures, there's a couple different types. You can get the typical fracture, which people will commonly call breaks. A typical fracture is a through and through break where you break the cortex, usually cortex on both sides. The bone can either be green stick where it's just kind of bent, or it could be through and through. It could be in alignment like it's supposed to be, or it could be displaced, or even displaced in other ways. The problem with a stress fracture is they're commonly missed. They're commonly more difficult to see, and most of the time if you go to the emergency room or an Instacare or even some doctors, you're going to actually get an evaluation. They're going to say nothing is broken. It'll get better in a couple weeks. If it's not, you probably need to be seen. Most of the time with the standard x-ray, you're not going to see a stress fracture for anywhere from 7 to 10 days. And at that point, then you start to see the healing, which actually allows you to see the stress fracture. Now, the advantage we have is we have a digital x-ray, which allows us not to clarify the image and to zoom in on the image, which allows us to say, okay, we can see stress fractures within minutes of that happening, and we can usually see it the same day that you fractured it, or within days of you fracturing it, or that you went to the emergency room and they didn't find anything. You come in and say, well, actually, because there's a stress fracture right here, and you can see a stress fracture anywhere in the foot or ankle. The problem with a stress fracture is exactly that. They're commonly missed, they're commonly poorly treated, and you can make a stress fracture worse. As we talked about yesterday, a stress fracture that's not treated, like a march fracture, where you've got a stress fracture to the second metatarsal and you continue to march because you didn't see it, can become a through and through fracture, and could be even a displaced fracture that becomes a lot bigger deal. So how do you treat a stress fracture? Well, number one, how do you diagnose a stress fracture? Pain location and x-ray indication that shows there is a stress fracture in that area, which is a crack in the bone. A lot of times you're not going to see it on 2 or 3 images. You may only see it on 1, but it's usually in the exact area where the pain is. How do you treat them? You treat them like any other fracture. Although stress fractures typically will heal almost no matter what you do, you can make them worse if you don't do what you're supposed to get them better. So a stress fracture can be a problem. It can be a big problem if you continue to function and continue to apply the same amount of stress without treating it. So stress fracture, treat it. You may have to immobilize it. You may have to put it in a boot or post-op shoe. You may have to wrap it. Most likely you don't have to stay off it, but you will want to limit running, jumping, those kind of activities that could stress it even more and make the fracture more serious. This is Dr. Brandt Gibson, and this is your Podiatry Tips Day 79, stress fractures. So if you have a stress fracture, or you think you might, it's worth getting evaluated so you can actually take better care of it and